Hello, it's Duncan. Last week we used JetBrains AI Assistant to write some code to generate a package diagram. I was certainly more productive with its help, but the resulting code wasn't as I would have written it, and asking it to suggest refactorings wasn't very helpful. This week I tried a different tack, looking at the code to see what I don't like in the small, and asking AI Assistant to fix it. This proved to be a good tactic. In fact, I'm hugely impressed by what I've seen, and I think you will be too. Reminding ourselves where we were from last time, we asked the AI Assistant to write some Kotlin code to generate a package diagram, and after a bit of cajoling it came up with this. We've already asked it to refactor once, and we've got this walk tree generate.file and create image output. Now it's not actually very understandable to me, but it does produce this output.png, which isn't perfect. It includes some things that aren't actually packages. This db tables items and stock list loading error. That's the thing we might like to fix. But before we go on, it would be good to have some tests, because a diagram like this could change with the refactoring, and I don't think we'd notice. Now, last episode we asked the AI Assistant to write some tests, and it didn't do a terribly good job. So this time I'm going to say, select all of this and AI actions, new chat using selection. And I can give it a clue. I'm going to say I'd like an approvals test. So write an approvals test for this code. See what we get. Let's have a look at that. Oh, this is very strange. It seems to be faking path to return a contents for source main, but not a directory tree. And it doesn't actually seem to be testing our code at all. Okay, so I'm going to give up on this one, and let's go to a previous chat and see how that did. This one I prepared earlier is a lot more plausible. It actually uses org approvals test approvals, and it talks about what an approvals test is. That's good. It calls our main function, and it goes to the inputs and output files and checks that they are as approved. Well, that's not bad. The only problem is the approvals test library it's used. Now, I wrote an approvals test library called Okeydoke. So I asked it, can you do that using Okeydoke? And the assistant says, sure, assuming we've already set up Okeydoke in our project. Below is an example of how to use a test using Okeydoke. Now this is really interesting because it says import UK co probably fine matches approvals. The only problem is that doesn't exist. Interestingly, Java file matches does exist, but I think the AI is having a hallucination here. Spookily though, UK co probably fine is Alex Wilson, who's a friend of mine, and did actually pair with me on some work I did on Okeydoke. That has to have been a good 5 years ago now, and I didn't know the AI was watching, but it is a bit creepy. I can't remember what I said next. I actually asked what Maven library is UK co probably fine matches approvals in, and I'm told it's not part of any standard Maven library, and then some weasel words going back to approvals test.java. I do like, regarding your request, you could have been looking for the similar methods approval verify from approvals test.java and used the wrong import. And when it says I could have been, it meant it could have been. But I guess this is what happens when we just guess the next word. But I think we're going to give up on this. I don't really want to bring in the org approvals test library. So I think we'll do this one by hand. Let's get rid of the AI assistant. And I'm going to write a function here that is check.file. What's that going to do? We'll create it, and it will say .file contents is file of. Where's our .file? That'll be in generate.file. So that will be output. So let's take this thing, and we'll say .readlines, and I think we'll just write our own approved version. So we'll say approved file contents is output.approved. And then we'll say assert equals approved.file contents is .file contents. So if we now run this code, it will fail because we don't have the approved file. And now if we bring up the terminal and copy output to output.approved, Oh my goodness, I still have DOS fingers, it turns out. Copy. Then we'll pass, and I guess we could just try editing the file to check that it does fail. And we get an exception. Okay. Well, checking its own output will do for now. Let's just move that to the end. Now what I'm going to try and do is refactor this to make it understandable by me with the aid of the assistant. So the first thing is we've just introduced some duplication here ourselves, this file output.dot. Let's see if we can get rid of that. It seems that if I say AI actions new chat using selection, at the top level it only expands to 2 blank lines, which is not very helpful. So we're going to have to say everything. And now say AI actions new chat using selection. And I'm going to say remove the duplication of file output.dot. Don't know if I have to type the quotes, but let's give that a go. Okay, so there's some weasel words up here around not doing it, but it then decides that a possible improvement could be to turn it into a constant. That's not really what I wanted. What I wanted was for output.dot to be a parameter. So let's try asking that directly. Make file output.dot a parameter to the functions that use it. That's a lot more like what I want. So now let's say, show me the whole file. I note that it's taken the opportunity to put the dot file path into the runtime exec call as well. That's really good. I do think in this case, though, I could have done the job by hand in the time it took to slowly scroll the output up the screen, especially as I now need to go back up to the top to insert the snippet over there. But let's not look a gift horse in the mouth and run that. And that seems to have worked. And there is our output, which we now assume is unchanged. Okay, the next thing that's staring me in the face is this strike through here is deprecated. Let's see whether I can just fix that up for us. Remove the deprecation. Well, that's changed some things that I didn't expect and weren't actually marked as deprecated. But I think if I go on from here, the model will think that I've accepted those changes. That's a bit of a problem, so I'm going to go back here now and select everything and start a new chat. And this time I'm going to say remove the deprecated exec invocation. See what we get. Well, that has done the job, although it's really quite a bit more verbose. This is deprecated, but there's a version that takes string array, and I had thought that that's what we'd use, so let's instead ask for that. Say use exec string array instead. See what we get. That's better. And I think this time I'm just going to take that and copy it over the top of this one and run that. And we're good. So let's say inline command. Splendid. Take that and use it in here and run. Good. And now for this sort of code, there's little point in catching an exception and printing a stack trace. Main will do that for us. Let's see if we can get rid of that. Remove the catch exception and let it propagate. Splendid. Copy that into there and run. Good. Okay, returning to the file, this const output dot is a bit strange at the top level. Can we say make output dot a variable in main? Well, I was going to say I think that's better, but I don't understand this. You will also need to change the method signatures of generate dot file and so on. because they already have the dot file path. So never mind, let's take what we've got here, which I think is a bit better, and put it into here, like that, and run. Good. Now we come to a matter of taste, which is that output dot isn't really our output, it's just something that's marshaled between functions. So I think I'm going to move that down here because it's not very important. But we do really want to parameterize the output PNG. Let's see whether we can ask that to happen. Make a parameter of output.png. So it correctly says that would make everything more flexible. And I can say, show me the whole file. At this point, though, it's lost my change to output.dot. And is really very slow. But I suppose the AI Assistant's context is now the same as our code, providing we copy all that into there and run it. Good. Returning to the top again. Now looking at this code, we have this mutable map here that I suspect is mutated when we walk the tree, but isn't mutated in generate.file. Let's just have a look. And indeed there we have the file tree, but I can't see that doing any mutation there. So can we just ask to remove the mutation? Okay, let's see what we got. We'll read the text at the bottom first. In this revision, the walk tree function now returns an immutable map, a string to set a string, to represent the file tree rather than mutating a passed-in map. Moreover, the generate.file now accepts a map, a string, rather than a mutable map. It says, remember, the less you mutate data, the less you're likely to introduce bugs associated with state change. Well, it's interesting having an AI preach to me when it's code that it wrote and I suggested it change. Let's take the whole of that thing, show me the whole file. Okay, then go back over here, select everything, go to the top of this one, and put that over there. First we'll run it to check. Apparently okay. And now let's have a look at what we've ended up with. So now, as is sensible, I think, walktree returns this map. It declares it as a mutable map here. And here it takes a mutable map and maps over its values, creating immutable sets. Now, that's not wrong, but it's not as right as it might be, because it should just be able to return a file tree at this point. Is that right? Well, I'm right. So let's undo that. Let's see whether the AI can work that out. If we say remove file tree to map. Okay, here it says if you want to avoid creating a copy of the file tree using tomap, you can indeed return the mutable map directly. Nonetheless, bear in mind this will expose the mutable map to the call as a walk tree. So at this point it hasn't really got the gist. I think we're going to take this, remove that, check it works, and then start another chat with this as our basis. The first thing that offends looking at this is this files walk tree. This pre-visit directory visit file failed. I think we saw there was an easier way of doing that last time. So now let's say AI actions new chat, and this is use something else than walk file tree. Okay, now oddly this says you can use list files, but then goes on not to use list files, but to use walk top down. That's a bit strange, but I think it should work. Let's say show me the whole file, because it made some changes to make this a file rather than a path. Okay, let's take that and run. Splendid. Now if we're picky, output dot and output PNG being strings and source path being a file is a different level of abstraction. Let's see whether we can fix those. Make output dot and output PNG into file objects. Here's the answer. It's correctly done that, and it has correctly changed generate.file and create image output. It's a shame every time I have to ask it to show the whole file, especially as that took 30 seconds that I didn't inflict on you. Back here and say insert and run. Did I mess that up? Let's have a look. Well, no, actually, something has changed. That's interesting. That was imported PNG, imported package, but it then made it imported PNG in here. Well, it's finally slipped up. Let's just fix that by hand and run. And we're still good. And this is still our output. Okay, having had to fix that spelling mistake, I suspect we'll be out of sync from now on. So again, I'm going to start a new chat for the next thing. And if I'm being really picky, we're using files, but here we do have a file that we do toPath on. And then in the path, we do toFile on it. So really, I think we should be using paths or files, pick one. So let's take all this and say AI actions, new chat. And we'll say, make the receiver of get Kotlin file packages a file. Well, I've got to say that was very good. Let's take that code and try it out. Run it. Good. How about moving this filtering here out of here and into the walk? Can we do that? Move the filtering on ends with .kt out to walk tree. And oh my goodness, it's done a really good job of that. Here you can see we've got the it path ends with is part of our filter. And we removed the if from here. Check that that is the right thing by running. I've got to say that was very impressive. Let's see how far we can push this. In here, it's a bit odd that we have file tree up here, and then we're doing things to it here, and then we're returning it here. That's really an apply. Let's see whether the assistant can use that. We'll say use apply to initialize file tree in walk tree. And I have to say, just wow, that is very impressive. Take all this, and it started now, it seems, showing me the whole file every time, which is really useful. Run. Good. Okay, remaining hypercritical in this get Kotlin file packages, we had this current package, which is a mutable variable, and we're mutating this file tree that's being passed in. I think both those things are a bit naff. Let's see whether we can say remove mutation from get Kotlin file packages. Okay, so here's the answer. To remove mutation in the get Kotlin file packages function, we need to get rid of the variable current package that changes during the function's execution. To achieve this, a possible solution is to pair each line of code with its corresponding package. And here is its proposal. Where is it here? Well, my goodness, that's horrible. I'm really not sure that's a good idea. That's a lot more complicated. And really our only issue here is this current package is outside this for each. Let's just ask it to put it inside. Move current package inside the for each in get Kotlin file packages. I think I see the problem here, and that's that this code doesn't know that the package statement must come before any imports. I mean, I think that it implicitly only works because of that. Later import lines require that the package was found first. In some ways, the code on the right now is more correct, although I don't think it'd be doing the same thing if we had package statements after our import statements. This code is fascinating, the map not null, take if first or null. I'd be really interested to see whether it actually works, so let's find out by running it. And it appears to be working, but I think it's made everything worse rather than better. So I'm going to undo this and maybe try something really daring, which is to say a package statement will always be on the first line. So refactor using that. And oh my goodness, given that the package statement would always be on the first line, we can simplify get file packages by directly assigning the match group to package name. Here's the updated code. And here you can see we're going to the first or null, and then we're dropping one after that. That is really smart. Let's try it out. Paste that and run. That is actually really impressive. Can we go further? It's a bit weird that we had this package name that we're assigning to null and then we are asking whether it's null. Can we just say simplify get Kotlin file packages? Is that simpler? I don't know. We've got this nasty little early return here. I do like this pattern matcher run if find group, which we see in here as well effectively. But I think what we've got here obfuscates things a bit too much. Can we say don't make that last change to keep in sync? And it seems that we can, because that has undone that change. I think I'll leave that for now and pull on the thread that maybe get Kotlin file packages should be not mutating this map, but returning a pair of the package names, a string, and a set of the imports. Can we ask it to do that? Make get Kotlin file package. We could really do with autocomplete in here. No suggestions, unfortunately. Return pair of string to set of string. I think that's asking a lot, but let's see what we get. Now then, to return a pair of string to set of string, you want to change the method to not modify file tree. Well, that was the point, but instead return a pair of the package name to the set of imported packages. Here's the updated code. Well, walk tree has been changed in order to use associate down here, rather than the mutable map that it has here. That seems plausible. And then get Kotlin file packages. Well, it's a bit of a hodgepodge, but it stands a chance. Let's select all that and insert it over there and try that. But I'm kind of grateful that it's actually failed. Let's have a look. Yes, it has generated a different diagram. Let's have a look at what we have. Well, phew. The AI has finally messed up. I suspect that the issue is that this associate is not merging the packages from every file, although this code here has got complicated enough for me not to know really. Let's see whether we can fix things. That doesn't work. It loses packages. Well, our new AI overlord appears to agree with us that that was the problem. So let's try taking its new version, copy that into here, and run. Phew. Now, in some ways, this is more like the code that I expected an AI to have written in the first place. It's functional, it's terse, it's maybe a little too terse, and you actually have to read between the lines to see how it works. But maybe I just force the AI into being the same smart-ass programmer as I am. I'm finding it strangely stressful not just manipulating the code by hand to do what I want. I suppose in some ways I'm used to thinking through the consequences as I type and refactor, whereas now I'm asking the AI to do a thing, but then having to read what it's done in order to understand the consequences. Actually, in some ways it's a lot like pair programming. It is in fact a little bit more stressful because we're having to communicate our intention to something else and interpret its response. I think maybe the AI assistant and I have to take a little break from each other. I'm going to move it away there. I'm going to make this private and move it out of here just down to the bottom as not really important to the scheme of things. I can remove that as it's not required. Do a little bit of reformatting in these places. In fact, I think that those patterns might as well just be at the top level, so we can move them out of here to the top. as private, and then they wouldn't be required here or here. Run that. It's good. And I think we could name this extract package and imports. This could be a single expression. Reformat, run, and then back up the top. Hold on, wait a moment. We now have create image output before we have generate dot file. Well, I don't remember doing that. Obviously, it should be there. If we run, still works. But somewhere along the line in our chat, I think that must have got messed up. Let's see if I can find it. Well, it wasn't there then, and by now we were into hand edit, so it looks like it was Duncan that messed that up rather than the AI. I apologize, LLM. Please don't come for me or my family. One last thing while we're messing around by hand, and that's that if we don't find a package as the first line of the file, I think maybe we should use root. So we could use that in here as a special thing. And I think that would mean that we can't be null, so we can get rid of that. Let's see what that gives us. Well, we'll be different to the approved version, but let's have a look at the output. And then indeed does give us our root right at the top, which is pretty perfect. So now we can prove again by copying, run again, and we're good. Okay, before we wrap up for today, last time we noticed this arrow here pointing from rendering back up to Gilded Rose, and observed that's not a dependency we want. We don't want our rendering depending on the package above it. So let's go and look in our source for why that is. Here's our rendering package, and luckily it's only got one file in it, so it should be quite easy. And let's have a look. We are importing, here, Gilded Rose features. So it looks like at some point we created this features class and just left it in the root package. Same is probably true of our price stock list loader here. Let's see where that's referenced. Well, it turns out that's only actually used by the app, which is the root of everything. Now, I think I might argue that price stock list loader would be better off in pricing. Now we have that package. So we could move that into there. That seems to have left something behind. I do wish IntelliJ wouldn't do that. I was moving the whole file, not the class. So let's undo. So let's take this file and move it. And we'll take the type alias with it. That's a refactor. And let's just look at the test of that. That was here. And again, we'll do the same thing. We'll move that into pricing and make sure we've moved everything, refactor that. And now where should we put features? Well, it's not really part of the domain, and I don't think it's part of Foundation, but we have this config, and features and config feel quite the same, so I think we'll move that into there. Is that everything? Yes. Good. Run all the tests. And now let's generate that class diagram again. The diagram has changed, so it's thrown an exception, but here's our diagram. And you can see we've lost the backward pointing arrow now. We do still have these false positives, and I suspect that if we're importing top-level functions from a package, we're not seeing those. Those are changes we can look at another time. I think I'm going to commit our production code changes first. So that will be everything in our source but the package analyzer. So this is remove dependency on Gilded Rose package. Commit that. And now for our package analyzer, I think one more change. It might be nice to call it PNG, packages.png, and to put our approved file into the test tree and our output.dot into a temp file. The first of those I'm going to do by hand. So we say my output PNG is packages.png. I'll do the second one by hand as well. That'll be in check.file. So this wants to be source test resources package.file approved. So if we run that, it should fail as the file won't be there. But now we can move the dot file into source test resources package.file.approved. If we run this, it will now pass. And now go back to the top, select everything, and ask the AI assistant to put output dot into a temp directory. So that's saying use create temp file. I guess we can do that in here. Oh, little bit of a fail. What are our options? That says use Kotlin IO path create temp file instead, or resort to Java IO create temp file. Maybe Kotlin will just fix that for us. No. Let's just use file.create temp file. Check that. Prefix and suffix should be good. And one fast little thing, this check.file seems to be taking a path. Let's try and fix that. Saying make .file path a file. Well, I think this is another one where it might just be easier to say this is .file, which is a file. Now fix that there. F2 and run. Good. That hasn't changed. And now we can check in. So we want output approved and output dot and output PNG can be deleted. And then we're going to add the package.file and the packages PNG to Git. And this is going to be commit package analyzer and it's PNG. One code analysis issue. Call on collection type may be reduced. Is that true? Yes, it is. I think we'll call that an amend. And we're done for the day. So then, what have I learned from the last 2 sessions using AI Assistant? Well, first of all, it's very much like working with a human pair. It's more tiring until we get used to each other, and it's frustrating having to explain yourself and interpret what the other party has written. And it's a bit of a pain to hand over control from one of us to the other. Secondly, its coding style is not my style of Kotlin, but it's amazingly good at refactoring to my style, but only when micromanaged. It's like pairing with a good developer who has different tastes. At the moment, though, it only really works in a single file, limiting the scope of what it can achieve and the refactorings. We still need tests to prevent our pair making errors, and I wish it had better test runner integration so it would know when it had made a mistake. I haven't used GitHub Copilot, so I can't compare, but I'm seriously impressed by this pre-release version of AI Assistant, and I can't wait for the next release. I, for one, welcome our new AI overlords. If you'd like to show your support for the new regime, please subscribe to the channel. And if you've enjoyed this, then I think you'll enjoy the book that I wrote with Nat Price called Java to Kotlin, a Refactoring Guidebook, details of which are in the show notes below. Thanks for watching.